I like to rant. Ranting is fun. It also cleanses the soul.
Detroit is to be one of the best sports cities in the country, if not the best.
Surely Javi can't be as bad this year as he was last year. Surely that can't be the case.
One of the worst offenses, if not the worst offense, like in the modern era of baseball. Just absolutely atrocious. He is a piece to the puzzle. He is not the entire puzzle.
Right.
He's a puzzle piece, but he is not the entire puzzle.
This is the Michigan and Trumbull podcast with your hosts, Alex S. Freeman and Luke Giaconis. Hello and welcome to the Michigan and Trumbull podcast. I'm Alex Freeman, joined as always by Luke Giaconis, podcasting from a cave today. Luke, how are you?
Is it that dark? I even put the light. I should have got my ring light, but I was just being a little bit lazy. Is it that bad?
Well, it's partially because
it could be way worse. If I turn that light off, go ahead.
It's partially because you're backlit, and so like you're just naturally darker. It's great for the YouTube folks. They love it. They love it.
Yeah, we have. It's just you know what? I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna go get the ring light. I'm just being lazy today. And usually I'm in the little corner over there, but I didn't do that today this time either. And we're just going to roll. I do feel like it now, looking at it from my angle, it is a little dimly lit. I feel like we're watching a David Fincher movie right now. That's is what it is. One. Next time we'll go back to the regular setup.
That's quite all right.
How are you, Alex?
That's quite all right. I'm doing well. As are the Detroit Tigers, currently sitting at 18-13 as we
Good
record.
Segue.
After they have won another series, this time against the St. Louis Cardinals at home, taking 2 of the 3 games. Off day as this episode drops on Thursday, May 2nd. And then they're off to New York. They're coming to visit me. They're all going to stay at my apartment. And it's going to be very crowded in the place. But we'll get some pizza. We'll have a good time. Maybe watch a couple movies, but get those guys to bed early because they got to beat the Yankees this weekend.
Yeah, they're staying at your apartment. As someone who has crashed at your apartment before, you're going to need to definitely invest in a lot more of those eye masks for the living room.
Yes. I'm
just going to pull back the curtain a bit, which, speaking of curtains, Alex doesn't have them in their living room. So you walk in there with perfect vision. You walk out there blind. It's them's the ropes. But you know what? As a friend who doesn't charge you a dime to stay at his pad, we will definitely take it, and we are grateful for it, as the Tigers will be when all 28 of them sleep in your apartment.
The full 40-man roster. The full
so
40-man's coming.
Full 40 man. Yep. That's funny stuff.
We're bringing them up.
Comedy.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's going to be great. Yeah, we're going to, I'm sure, we can just dive into it now. The month of April has come to a close. And the Tigers, for the first time since I believe 2017, finished with a winning record in the month of April.
Was 2017 a winning record?
It is by far. In the month of April, I believe it was, yes.
Okay. That's fair.
On
May 1st.
Yeah, just for the month. They did not finish on May 1st.
They were at 500 in 2017.
Okay, so maybe, I'm pretty sure they were 500 in 2017. We're splitting hairs here, folks. Regardless, it has been a damn long time since this team has not completely thrown up on themselves out of the gate to start the season. And it was a pleasant surprise this year that history did not repeat itself. Alex and I were saying before we got going, this is by no means a perfect team. There are definitely areas in which this team can improve upon. Mainly for me, offensively being more consistent and overall hitting and coming in the clutch in high leverage situations. I think that still is an issue that plagues this team. But if you take that out of the equation, and if you take out of the equation underperforming players, I'm sure we'll get to that in a little bit, Colt Keith, Spencer Torkelson, Parker Meadows. Beyond those things, they've been pretty solid in April. They got a Cy Young worthy pitcher in Tarek Skubal. Yep. A darn good rotation backing him up. Kenta Maeda even getting better as the starts have gone along this season. Jack Flaherty had a career best. Yep, Kenta. Congrats to Kenta on getting his first win against the Cardinals in the rubber match. And Reese Olson, although the win losses may not reflect it, has pitched really, really well this season, as has Casey Mize. Bullpen's been solid. I mean, I know they've scuffled a little bit in the last week, the bullpen, but I think that was given. They were so locked in and so perfect and so highly needed those first 2 to 3 weeks that they were eventually going to give up a couple of runs here and there, and it's happened. Shelby Miller had that rough outing game 1 against the Cardinals. Will Vest has struggled a little bit lately. Even Foley gave up a couple runs against the Royals this past weekend. But overall, the bullpen is still great. I'm not worried about this bullpen. If this kind of trends continue into the month of May, then maybe. But I'm not losing sleep over this bullpen. And then offensively, there are some players who actually are bringing their A game. Mainly Mark Canha, Kerry Carpenter, Riley Green, who is just living up to his billing as a first pick for the Tigers. And someone who I think, I don't know about you, has taken this team by storm. And I'm not talking Tarek Skubal. I'm not talking Riley Green. I'm not talking Jason Foley. I am talking one Wenzel Perez, who has just literally said he has forced the hand of AJ Hinch, and he is pretty much saying, you cannot send me down. Sorry, Too bad, so sad. Find someone else. And more power to him. That guy's been absolute dynamite since he got called up from the Ibanez injury. And when Gio Urshela comes back, interesting decision is going to have to be made. But if he keeps performing like he is, I think there's no way in hell it's Wenzel Perez. I think you're looking at some other candidates.
Yeah, I got some thoughts on who that might be. But I want to kind of go back to the record situation here, Luke. Just a quick quiz for you. Okay, so 2017, they were at 500 at the end of April. 2016 was the last time they were above 500 at the end of April. 13-10 on May 1st that year. The 2019 Tigers, what was their record on May 1st?
I looked this up the other day, and I was shocked when I saw the number. I might be off by the number, but was it 11-12?
I think that's what they were in April. So then if you add the couple games that happened in March, they were 13-14 on May 1st.
Wow.
And then proceeded to win only 36 more games the rest of the year?
Yeah, they won 47 that year. So yeah, they were
34 more
that
games.
Is crazy. But here's the thing. Yeah, hey, I'm never gonna call you out on your math. You know that, buddy. You're the brains of this operation. I'm not gonna fact check you. Keep it rolling. The fact that you said that, I'm actually not that shocked because I remember living in Chicago with resident A's fan Tom and Sean Young, which, by the way, by the time this episode drops on May 2nd, happy birthday to Sean Young. Happy birthday to
Shawnee.
our pal.
Big crypto guy now.
Yeah, big crypto guy now. The Tigers, I think, had a doubleheader against the Red Sox in Boston at like the end of April. And they won both games. And I was on cloud 9 because I think they were like officially with those 2 wins back at 500 or like a game over. And I remember the Cubs had a big win that day. And Sean and I went to the G-Man Tavern on Clark Street, right off of Waveland. And we just had a bunch of drinks. And I was like, this is the best feeling in the world. My team's winning. What could go wrong? And then the rest of the season went wrong. And then I was drinking there, not in celebration, but in sorrow. So, yeah, I'm not surprised by that. That they were, but that's crazy. That's what a horrible twist of fate.
Yeah,
I mean, you're 13-14 going into the month of May. Like, all right, hey, you know what? We didn't play great, but we're still in the thick of things. And then you just completely crap your pants the remaining 4 months of the season, 5 months of the season. So that's pretty crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I mean, keeping things a little bit recent as well. Talking about Jack Flaherty, I mean, that start against the Cardinals in Game 1 of that doubleheader was just unbelievable. It was so good, and just pathetic that the offense could not put together a couple of runs. Listeners of the video version, watchers of the video version, are going to see a bit of a jump cut there. And audio listeners, you may also be experiencing a jump cut right now. We had a little recording snafu there, but we're going to kick it back to talking about Jack Flaherty's start against the Cardinals. What what a gem of a start, that I'm mad at the offense for not generating enough runs to protect that win for Jack, more than I am mad at the bullpen for giving up a couple of runs to
Mhm.
lose the game. Because I do think that when you are consistently putting your bullpen into positions to protect one-run leads, that's an unrealistic expectation, that I think you should reasonably expect your bullpen to always protect a 3-run lead. Anything less than that, every once in a while, but when they've had to do it as consistently as they've kind of had to do it so far this season, it's I'm not upset at them for blowing the win for Jack. Your thoughts?
Said perfectly. Truly, I think this is what I said or alluded to earlier in the episode, where it's like the one area where I think it's pretty clear the Tigers need to improve upon is hitting with runners in scoring position and hitting in high leverage situations. It's not that they didn't have opportunities. In that seventh inning, they had, I believe it was bases loaded, if not one, for sure, 2 outs. Mark Canha pinch hit. I definitely like that move going to Mark Canha. He's been one of the best hitters on the team. I'm not going to knock Mark for not coming up in that moment because he's come up in a lot of other moments this season. That's been a really nice little trade that they made, and a good acquisition. But regardless of him getting the job done or not, you can't rely on 1-run games to always seal the deal for you. You're not playing the White Sox every game this season, where
Yeah.
maybe you can get away with kind of walking that tightrope. Other teams will be able to make adjustments and will be able to answer back. And the Cardinals, although they're not by any means one of the best teams in baseball, have a scrappy enough lineup where they were able to get the job done against former Cardinal Shelby Miller. It was quite ironic. Jack Flaherty, former Cardinal, shuts down the Cardinals. Then in comes Shelby Miller, former Cardinal, then gives the game to the Cardinals. So it was
Mm-hmm.
a very kind of ironic appearance for both those guys. But yeah, I felt terrible for Jack Flaherty because I think he's kind of wavered a lot this season. We've seen some good, we've seen some bad. But what we saw from him in that first game against the Cardinals was on a different level. And I don't know also, I did not watch, shame on me, any of AJ's post game interviews from the doubleheader yesterday. I guess that would be Tuesday by the time this drops. But I was very curious about his reasoning for not letting Jason Foley go back out for the 5-out save. I believe he got 2 in the 8th. A lot of people were wondering if he would come back out for 3 in the 9th. And it was either going to be Foley, Miller, Foley, Miller. They went the Miller route, which obviously did not work.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion is on that, you throw Jason Foley out there. He is your best relief pitcher. You do whatever the hell you need to do to win that first game. Then you'll worry about game 2 down the road. And also keep in mind, all those arms were fresh. They were rained out / day off the day before. So it's not like guys were going on 7 days of making appearances with no rest. Like they were just coming off an off day. So I didn't listen to any of AJ's comments. I don't know where his head was at. I'm assuming, I could be wrong on this, and you know what they say out of people who assume, but I'm assuming that he was maybe wanting to keep Foley for game 2, and had that game got close, bring him back in. And if that's the case, I'm fine with that. I am, because then you can kind of double dip and get him in both games. But then once again, the game got blown out of proportion. Tigers didn't need him to come in. They could save his arm, and it was what it was. So
it's interesting because
interesting.
I don't know that you would be thinking about using Foley in game 2. I also didn't really look at AJ's comments after the game, but the only thing I can imagine he said is we like the matchups with Shelby Miller coming in, because that's usually AJ's response in those situations. And maybe you do in those spots, but also, like the guy had just gotten him save the other arm that hasn't been used already, for game 2. And although, whether or not we wanted that performance in game 2, probably not. Yeah, I mean, it was overall. I mean, it's one blip on the radar in the season.
They've won a lot of those games.
Yeah. Most of the time, those games have fallen for the Tigers so far this year. There have been times this month, Luke, that you and I have exchanged texts, or you have texted that this is the worst offense in baseball, and sometimes it certainly feels that way. And I would say that that's the only thing that has kind of continuously given me pause during April from really getting my hopes up about the season. And let's be real, hopes are running high.
Mhm.
But
As they should be.
it is those kind of like what feel like long stretches of inadequacy from the offense that can appear so far this season. But I'm not worried about starting pitching. I'm not really worried about the bullpen at all. Um, it is that, can the offense generate enough runs consistently to win these games? And so far, more or less, yes. Obviously, they're 17-13, but time will tell.
I think the one thing you have to take into consideration too is with the offense, and I hate to give them their kudos because they have been so damn inconsistent. Like to me, it's just crazy. Like I don't understand how one game you can go out and score 1 run, and then literally 3 hours later score 11 runs. Like I understand different pitchers and whatnot, but it's it's more or less this. It's the same. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's a dumb way to look at it, but like I know there's more to it, but like that, those just don't add up. Like instead of scoring 1 run and going for 11, and let's meet in the middle. Do 5-5 both games and like see how that works out. I don't know. That's probably a dumb thing to kind of harp on, but to me, just that doesn't add up when you look at it from kind of a broader view. But on a positive side with this Tigers offense, then we'll get to the negative. Like I said, there are guys who are contributing. Riley
Mm-hmm.
Green has really come into his own. He's taking really smart at bats, drawing a lot of walks, getting up pitch counts high with his at bats, and now they're also starting to generate into hits. He's lifting the ball. Really good stuff there. I mean, he was kind of a savior in a couple of those games against Tampa. And Kerry Carpenter, also reliable. Mark Canha, also reliable. Wenzel Perez, reliable. Jake Rogers has been heating up these last few games, which is a welcome sight because they need him. Let's talk about Javi Baez for a moment here, because Javi Baez is actually, let's preface this. Javi Baez is getting paid $25 million a year to play baseball for the Detroit Tigers. Is he living up to the $25 million
very
salary?
interested in where you're going with this.
Yeah. Is he living up to the $25 million a year salary? No, he is not. Have I feel like at least over the course of the last few games, the last week and a half, I have seen him making adjustments at the plate, i.e., not swinging at a ball that is headed towards Lansing, Michigan. Yes, I do feel like I have seen those improvements. Now they are minor, but they are improvements nonetheless. Do I want him to perform like 2016 Javi Baez? You're damn right I do. He's getting paid like he's 2016 Javi Baez. That's how he should be. But I think we all know where we're at with Javi at this point. But I guess the point I'm saying is, if you look at the shit show that is this offense from time to time, the people I'm most frustrated with right now, Javi Baez probably isn't even in that top 3. And I think that's saying something.
So it's interesting because I completely disagree with you. I would like you to tell me who you're most frustrated with in this offense before I talk about Javi Baez.
Fair enough. My pick, I think it's everyone's pick right now, is Spencer Torkelson.
Yep.
And my reason for that, if I can get in that for just a quick second, then I'll kick it back to you, is Spencer Torkelson, we have said a lot. I think we learned within halfway through last season, 2 years, whatever you want to say. I don't think he's going to ever end up being this big 1-1, 50 home run, 120 RBI machine that like he was promoted to be. I think at least you and I feel like are on the same page there of like, he's not going to be that guy. But we've also said he doesn't need to be that guy. He can be the Spencer Torkelson that he was last year. He's not going to hit for average, but he's going to hit some bombs, going to have that power stick, be that threatening bat in the lineup. Not only is he not a threatening bat in this lineup anymore, he's a guaranteed out 90% of the time. And I think it's a confidence thing at this point. The other thing I would say with Spencer Torkelson is, and you can make the same argument with Javi, I'm not negating it, but if you're not going to hit well, at least field your position. And the man has been butterfingers at first base. He has been brutal defensively. He's been brutal offensively. The obvious big difference between him and Javi Baez is, one, he hasn't been around as long, but two, he's not getting paid like Javi, so I totally get that. If you still say Javi's your most frustrated, I totally get it. I don't hate it, disagree with it. But for me, Torque has just regressed so much. This is worse than his rookie season, Torque. And the thing with Spencer Torkelson is this: when he comes up with runners in scoring positions and high leverage counts, he is so it's so predictable with him. He's going to watch that first pitch go. He's going to swing at an outside pitch, maybe take a ball, and then he's either going to strike out or he's going to pop up the ball to the first baseman, second baseman, right fielder. He's lost all confidence. I think he's lost all swagger that he had coming in as this big 1-1. I want the guy to do well. I'm not actively rooting for his demise, but at a certain point in time, we got to say, if this guy's not going to start hitting, does anyone still have CJ Cron's number? Because you could throw a CJ Cron in this lineup who'd probably knock you 20 home runs at least a year, and could go that way. So that's my frustrations with Torque. I want the guy to succeed. I don't hate the guy. I've just been so underwhelmed, and I feel like he's taken so many steps back this season in particular that I'm just kind of like, damn, dude, like it's really hard to kind of keep trying to back you up. I'm not giving up on him 100%, but I mean, the clock is more than ticking. I think he's down to his last couple of bullets, in my opinion, if it were me. But obviously, I'm not the manager, which is probably a good thing because AJ Hinch is way smarter.
There are only 2 statistical categories where Javier Baez is not worse than Spencer Torkelson.
Let me hear him.
Javi has more stolen bases, and Javi has hit a home run.
Does he have one on the year? Just one or two?
Just one.
Just one.
Torque has.
I can't argue with the
Torque
stats.
has drawn more walks. Torque has more total bases. Torque has more RBIs. Torque has a higher batting average. He has a higher slugging percentage. He has a higher OPS. The only thing that I think is keeping Javi at a 0.0 WAR is the fact that he has stolen 6 bases and hit a home run. But otherwise, I think his WAR would look exactly like Spencer Torkelson's right now, which is minus 0.9. So I guess what I'm just, the only thing I'm trying to say is that I think that Javi Baez has been so bad the past few years. He has been able to generate himself a pass on him being like, we are now more frustrated. And I don't disagree with your Spencer Torkelson frustrations. I think that when Gio is healthy, like Torque is the obvious person to send down and kind of adjust around who's playing first base. But I don't think they're going to do that. But that's what they should do. Because he's got to get so many things right in his head. And I'm very frustrated with Spencer Torkelson, but I just want to point out that Javi Baez is still a worse person to have come up at bat. Now
Would you not want, but
I don't have their RISP numbers in front of me.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they're hitting with runners in scoring position, but in general, like hitting for average, Spencer Torkelson is more likely to get a hit or on base than Javier Baez is.
But you personally, if it's game on the line, 2 outs, bottom of the 9th, bases loaded, no score game, Javi or Torque, who do you want to take in the at bat?
Can I have Andy Ibanez come in and take the hit?
Dude, I got to say this. One thing about Scott Harris, I've dogged on him a lot for a lot of his first year and a half as president. The Andy Ibanez move has really been nice, and he's lovable. That guy's just like, he's like a little baseball psychopath in the best way possible. No, you cannot have Andy Ibanez. That's for another ultimatum, another hypothetical. Who you taking, Javi or Spencer?
Okay, I mean, I guess I would take Javi, but I don't like it.
Well, you don't have to like it, but that's life. That's life, my
Buddy
man.
Kennedy. Can I have Buddy Kennedy come in?
You can't have him either. He's not on the active major league roster, unfortunately. What a fun story he had too. Had a couple big games in the Minnesota series and the Rays series. Yeah, I mean, I think you brought up a great point, and the stats don't lie. So you're 100% correct in everything you just said. I think for me, and you kind of touched upon this a moment ago, was I'm so used to Javi Baez being awful that even this very below average, mediocre Javi that isn't chasing balls 17 feet off the plate, I'm kind of like, progress. Whereas Spencer Torkelson, I guess my expectation is higher for him because we still don't know what he can be. We have an idea sometimes we don't. We know what we're getting with Javi. We all know at this point that he's a below average, overpaid shortstop who is going to whiff a ton, from time to time make some beautiful plays in the field, then sometimes also bungle a few plays in the field, and from time to time he'll hit a ball to the moon. But more often than not, whiffing a lot and playing a whatever defense. Torque, there's still a lot more. Actually, I've now told myself I'm calling him Spencer, because to me the name Torque, that is like, I'm Torque. I'm gonna murder this ball, man. And he's not. He hits like a Spencer. He hits like a guy who's like, well, I hope I just make the team, and my mom's got brownies and Kool-Aid jammers and the Carboys. That's what he hits like. He hits like a Spencer. He doesn't hit like a Torque. And that's your new soundbite for the intro. So you're welcome. You're welcome, America. But that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at right now for Mr. Torkelson. I don't want to see him fail. I do think sending him down to AAA for a couple weeks to clear his head would do him a lot of good. He could play Mark Canha at first base, call up Keston Hiura from the Toledo Mud Hens, just as a 2-3 week kind of sabbatical, just for him to kind of figure it out. But I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do, because I don't think they're going to send down Wenceel Perez. I really don't. So, in my opinion, you have 4 options: 1, Spencer Torkelson; 2, Colt Keith; 3, Parker Meadows; 4, you could see someone like Zach McKinstry get DFA'd. And I don't think it's going to be Spencer. I don't think it's going to be Colt Keith. I do think it might be Parker Meadows. But Parker Meadows, the reason why I'm not so irate with him as it feels like a lot of people are, 1, he's still very new into his career, just like Colt Keith, who's even who's even newer than Parker Meadows, I should say. But all I need from Parker Meadows, give me like a 220 average, slap a couple of base hits from time to time, be somewhat clutch, be a madman when you do get on base, and play a great center field defense. If he can do that for me, I'm happy. That's all I need Parker Meadows to do. So it could be him that gets the boot when Gio Urshela comes back, and I think you could see a guy like a Zach McKinstry get the boot. It just kind of depends.
So, Luke, while I was listening to everything you said and paying very, very close attention to everything, I was also looking at some advanced statistics on Baseball Reference.
Okay. I've heard that website.
And just kind of like to further the point of, like, I think Javi Baez is overall definitely the worst player, but if the bases are loaded and the game is on the line, I would choose Javi Baez to come up to bat. So batter wins, which is essentially a stat that is designed to say how much this batter contributes to their team wins. Javi is minus 0.6, so he sort of costs the Tigers about half a win on the year. Spencer Torkelson is a minus 0.4, so similar, but costs them a little less in the lineup. But then if you go over to the numbers that are designed to measure clutch performance, Javi is better than Torque on all of those numbers. And so I mean, to that point, that, like, but it's been true all of Javi Baez's career, is that, like, when he is being booed, that's when he comes alive. And so I guess, like, do we just have to start booing him at Comerica?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting with Javi. Yeah, maybe because I've just been so frustrated with Spencer lately that I guess Javi's kind of been off the hook, so to speak, which isn't fair, but just kind of how I've been viewing it. And I feel like a lot how Tigers Twitter has been viewing it. You know, one thing we got to talk about too is, and they played better in the Cardinal series. Mm-hmm. Some of the defense we have seen from this team in the month of April has at times ranged from really good, really smart baseball to not even Little League level baseball. So I don't know. That's also something I'm keeping an eye on very closely in the month of May, because there was like the Tampa series and the Kansas City series.
The Rays series, I think, is the game that they had 3 errors in 1 inning.
Yeah, and then there was but then in the one game against Kansas City, I think on Saturday night, they made 4 errors, I think it was, and still won the game, I want to say. Yeah. So they've got to get. And AJ Hinch even said, I saw that post game. AJ was like, we cannot expect to win games where we are making this many mistakes and we get bailed out later in the game by the long ball. That's not how we're going to do this season. So obviously they're well aware of it, but that was like because they were playing solid defense the first few weeks of the season. And then I don't know what happened. Like the last 10 games, like, I don't know if people were just tired or just over. I don't know, but it was brutal. It was really bad, really bad.
All right, Luke. You wanna let's talk about the schedule to come.
Let's do it. You've got a big weekend of baseball ahead. Then I got a couple questions I want to ask you once we get done talking about your upcoming slate of games. You're saying Alex is going back to Yankee Stadium.
I will be there. I will be in attendance for all 3 games, the Friday, Saturday, Sunday set against the New York Yankees. I'm really excited about this series in particular, just because so obviously the first month of the baseball season is over, and with that comes various think pieces and articles. What did we learn during the first month of the season? And then obviously an updated power rankings came out of the teams, and I was very upset with the disrespect shown to the American League Central generally. And I'm excited for this weekend because I think that there's still a lot of New York bias in the media. Not that the Yankees aren't very good this year. They're a very, very good baseball team. They're playing very good baseball. But I would like to see the Tigers come in and compete with the Yankees in a way that we haven't seen them do in a few years. And because, like, if you pull up right now the American League standings for the league overall, Cleveland at top, then Baltimore, then the Yankees, followed by Kansas City and Detroit to round out the top 5. And then if we go to 6, it's the Twins. So 4 of the top 6 records in the American League are from the American League Central. And some people are like, well, that's it just because, I mean, yeah, sure. Some of those teams have all gotten their shot at the White Sox. And that is useful as you're boosting the record. But Tigers have played teams from the East as well. The Royals have played the Orioles at least so far this year. They have played good competition in the Central. But then if you go and look at the power rankings, those teams are nowhere to be seen in the top 10 in Major League Baseball. And I'm not saying it needs to be the Tigers in the top 10, but maybe the Guardians, who have the best record in the American League, should be somewhere up there. And yet, 0 respect. So I think that this weekend for me, maybe I'm eating these words next week, but is for me, like, it's the opportunity for the Tigers to show off that the American League Central records are actually what they are and not some weird inflated thing. Because if they were all just playing each other, that would be one thing, but that's not been the case.
Yeah, that was. We'll kind of jump here a bit and come back to the Yankees preview here in a second. My question for you was, what, in your opinion, has been some of the biggest surprises this first month of the season? And I was going to say, let's exclude the Tigers from this conversation, and I will just spoil what my answer would have been, or one of my answers would have been. It is how impressive the American League Central as a whole has been. When 4 out of your 5 teams are, like you just said, the top 6 teams in the American League, I don't think any of us saw that coming. Any of us. I will eat my words a little bit, going back to our season's prediction episode, and I don't know if it'll stick. Royals are going to be solid. They're going to be a sneaky, I think, pain in the ass team for a lot of this season. I will be curious to see how Cleveland does maintaining. They've got off to a very good start. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if they're going to be built for durability in the long haul, so I'll be mainly checking that out. I don't know about Minnesota because I watched us play Minnesota, and I know we split 2 of 4 and then won 2 of 3, but and I know they're kind of back from the dead. I don't think Minnesota's all that good. And now, granted, in that second series that the Tigers played them, they did not have Carlos Correa because he was on the IL. But
Mm-hmm.
even with Correa, I don't know. There's just something. I watched all those Twins games, and I was like, I don't get the hype for the. Not that there's ever a ton of hype for the Twins. I think they've always just kind of been the favorite by default. But watching what I've seen of them thus far, I'm kind of like, they're fine. And I think out of all the teams in the Central, the Twins have benefited the most from the White Sox because I think they've already played them twice this month, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think
Because I
you're correct.
know they had their. I think they had a series against them right after us. They had another team, and now they're back with the White Sox, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure they've already played them twice this month of April, which definitely I think helped kind of resurrect them because by the time we got done playing what the Tigers did, they were looking pretty defeated.
Yeah, I think most of
So
that
that would be
nine game winning streak has come against the White Sox.
yeah. So that's why for the Twins, I'm kind of like, I don't know. I don't know how much stock I can put in them being a relevant team. And then obviously, the Tigers will kind of we'll see what happens with them. They've got off to a good start, but definitely by no means are they a concrete pick to run away with this thing. So kudos to the AL Central though, because you got to win the games that are in front of you. And 4 out of our 5 teams in the AL Central in our division have brought it. And whether or not that kind of progresses for the rest of the season, we'll find out. But just judging off of this 30-some game sample size we've seen thus far, it's very impressive that so many of these teams from the AL Central got off to the good starts they did, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, Kansas City in particular,
Yeah,
I think we got to watch out for them. I think they're going to be a sneaky kind of thorn on everyone's side for the entire year. They can definitely hit the ball. They're scrappy. I think it's going to come down to pitching for them.
yeah. I think the thing that's been as an extension of that's been really surprising to me is that I think in the preseason, all of us were saying that the American League Central was going to be fun in that there wasn't necessarily a team that was going to run away with it. It was going to be like be above 500, and that's probably going to be good enough to win the division.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't feel like the case anymore. It if the playoffs started today, the American League Central gets 3 teams into the playoffs, which is a scenario that I don't think any of us saw coming. We were like, maybe second place gets to be a wild card team, but they're probably 500, so probably not. But it does seem like it is going to be a level of competitive baseball that we certainly haven't seen from the Central in a long time, in terms of like a multi-horse race to win the division, of actual competitive baseball, as opposed to a multi-horse race of like who just doesn't want to lose 83 games.
Right. The American League overall has been very interesting, I think, this first month of the season, because you are seeing teams that I think a lot of people didn't have on their radars coming out strong. Obviously, we've talked about the American League Central. The Boston Red Sox are definitely in the thick of things.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to give a shout out right now to the Oakland Athletics. Now, they are not an above 500 team, but in my opinion, and I was texting him about this with Tom the other day, they are at least performing much better than I think we all thought they would. Let me actually read you this text. I know he sent it to me. Hold on, let me read it to you. One moment here. I said, A's are way better than expected, in my opinion. I said, is this more or less what you anticipated them being? He said, they are 13-17. Last year at one point, they were 13-50. So yes, they've slightly exceeded my expectations. Yeah, I mean, again, they're not by any means like a great team, but better than at least I think. I think we were all thinking that most likely the 2 worst teams in the American League were going to be the White Sox and the A's. Well, one of those things are definitely true. The White Sox are just abysmal, and the A's are actually kind of scrappy, but still not kind of good. They're kind of right in the middle. But then you have teams like Houston and
Mm-hmm.
Toronto and Tampa And with those teams kind of scuffling out of the gate, it has opened the doors for teams like the Tigers and the Red Sox and Cleveland and Minnesota and Kansas City to kind of cement their place on top for now. Now we just have to see if they can kind of hold their spot or lose the throne. So, especially for teams like Seattle and not Seattle, Tampa and Toronto, because they're right around 500. They're kind of floater teams right now. Houston's got some work to do. Houston has some work to do if they're gonna make a run at it. They are definitely not in a good spot right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely we've seen it year in and year out. Like if you don't get off to a at least decent start in April, it is so hard to dig yourself out of that hole, even in the course of a 162 game season. If through the first 30 games you find yourself 10 games under 500, that means like to win your division, you have to be like 20 games above 500 the rest of the way. And that's hard to do. As opposed to if you can, even if the Tigers were coming out of this like 15-15, I'd be like, okay, great. We're in a fine spot. We are A-okay. We can do something here. We haven't dug a hole. We can keep moving forward. But this next week feels so massive to the season as I look at it, because we've got 3 against New York and then 3 against Cleveland on the road against two of the couple of teams that are above us in the standings in the American League. One of them obviously in the division. Just huge that if you can, this is the opportunity to close the gap with Cleveland, who I believe we're sitting 2.5 games behind right now. And, suddenly be in a position to be like in control going forward, as opposed to chasing. So yeah, massive. And then we get Houston, which is it's not a bad time to get Houston right now. They're still a little down. And Miami coming after that. So, it's a big month of May. It doesn't get easier from here for sure. And a big test that are we the 18-13 Detroit Tigers, or is this a 2019 situation where they were sitting about 500 on May 1st and suddenly the wheels just completely came off the bus? I don't think that's the case, but with a young roster like this, if you suddenly find yourself, if you go 0-6 in the next 6 games, that can really do some stuff to the head. That can be hard to come back from.
Yeah, I don't think they're looking at a 2019 downfall. I really don't. But this is a big week. In particular, the Cleveland series big. But we'll see Cleveland again throughout the year. So obviously, you want to win those games because it's a divisional opponent. I think I did the math off the top of my head. I think they're 9-4 this season so far against AL Central opponents, because they swept the White Sox. They lost 1 to Kansas City, and they've lost 3 to Cleveland over the course of the month of April. And I believe they took 3 from the White Sox. They took 2 from Kansas City. They split 2 with Minnesota, and then they won 2 from Minnesota. So yes, that's 9-4.
Nice.
So that's a good start against your opponents within your division. Definitely got to keep that up. But while I definitely want them to win against Cleveland this upcoming week, I'm really looking at this Yankees series, because the Yankees, for the first time in a while, are actually performing like the New York Yankees should be performing, given how much talent and payroll they have for their rosters. Also on top of that, though, the Tigers are going to be sending out their 3 best pitchers, in my opinion, in this series. So we're going to get a good gauge as to how does someone like Tarek Skubal stack up when he's facing Juan Soto and Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton and all these other big guys, Alex Verdugo. The Yankees aren't the Royals. The Yankees aren't the White Sox. They're a different breed with a different pool of talent. So I want to see how a Skubal mounts up against those guys. I want to see how Reese Olson does. Reese Olson, poor guy, has pitched really well this year, but if you look at his wins-loss, you're like, God damn. That's why you can't judge things off wins and losses, I think, anymore. You really can't, because he's really, really been solid. And unfortunately, it's like this weird stigma with him and a little bit of Casey Mize. Anytime those 2 guys take the mound, that is when the offense goes into a coma and they just completely shit the bed. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this Yankees series this week. I think this is a good test because you're in New York. They've played well on the road this season, But this is a big test against the Yankees and then go to do it against Cleveland. But yeah, it's 6 very intriguing games, but this Yankee series in particular, with the 3 starters they're going to be thrown out there, I'm eager to see the results.
I mean, get ready for the Skubal Cy Young talk to really heat up. If he comes into Yankee Stadium, fans, 7 guys, 8 guys, gives up no runs, then suddenly I think we're going to actually start really hearing some Skubal Cy Young, Skubal MVP kind of conversation.
I saw some. You talking about how you didn't like? I think it was that article from the Athletic. I saw some writer on MLB.com. They did essentially like awards for the first month of the season. They gave away like best first baseman and like they were essentially. I think it was actually predicting
Spencer
like the
Torkelson.
All-Star team. Yeah, Spencer Torkelson. Yep, absolutely. What's CJ Cron up to? And they had no positional players for the Tigers. Fair. I think there's been some solid players, but no one warrants. I think of like I love Mark Canha, but I don't think he's an all-star right now. But he's definitely been solid. Bullpen. They didn't have I think any bullpen nominations. Maybe they had a closer, but that was it. But regardless, no love for the bullpen. And I thought surely they will have Tarek Skubal mentioned in the starting pitcher category. Nope, nothing. So that's there's this weird bias, I think, because I think Detroit was a big market team for many years when they had Miggy and JV and Scherzer and Victor Martinez and Prince Fielder, and then they've just been so crappy for so many years. I think people are, and rightfully so, kind of like, I don't know about this Tigers team, and I get that because I'm also kind of the mindset too. I want them to earn it. I really want them to earn it. I want them to earn that spot of being that team on that classic Sunday night baseball matchup. I want that. So yeah, I do think there's this weird kind of stigma, kind of going back to the thing you said a little ago, where I think just teams from the AL Central don't really get a lot of respect ever, regardless of record and performance. And I think the only way that you can go out there and kind of prove people wrong is just keep winning games. And although it has been pretty from time to time, the Tigers did it. It's currently sitting at 18-13 as we are recording this on May 1st. Their best start in many, many years. They have won 4 series in a row. And while they're definitely not a perfect team, they're a solid enough team right now to still be in the conversation. Definitely still in the running for this AL Central. And it's exciting. It is exciting. Definitely got to work on some things this year. Fingers crossed the next time we do a show in the next week or so. Got some better news with Spencer and Colt Keith and Parker Meadows and all those guys. But just got to keep the ball, keep it moving, keep getting those wins.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Luke, and we will be back with more Detroit Tigers talk very soon, folks. Have a great week and go Tigers.